All right. So great to see everyone back on the Friday 15 and a little rusty and still a little bit I won't call it jet lag, more sort of just flying from having had the privilege of spending 3 weeks in Israel. And I don't want to use this as my debrief, but I want to sort of take some of the pieces from there and challenge myself to sort of figure out how to process that a little bit. And as always, tied into something from this week's Parsha, which is interesting that it's so not theoretical. This week's Parsha is Kiseitse, when you go out. When you go out to where? So the next word is Lamilchama, when you go out to war. And I think you, like me, often when we come across this parsha over the majority of our years on this planet, we would see it as like, oh, that's interesting. Like when the Jews back in the day went out to war, these were sort of the regulations and the rules of what would happen. And last week we were speaking about it. This week we were speaking about it. And obviously, our heart and our mind and our soul is a very different place in terms of, the reality. And, it's impossible not to acknowledge that today's an impossible number to fathom. Every number is impossible. But the number 700 is just an unimaginable number of what that means. And not this theoretical war, but in the reality that, this very second, there are people engaging in battle. And I should start by saying the merit of our learning should be in their safety and in the hostages' return from this moment and moving forward. Every action that we do should be a merit towards there. So the question is, what exactly can we focus on? Because there's so much to focus on. I'd like to focus on one idea that has sort of multiple applications, and then sort of a closing thought, which I literally just came across this morning after davening in a sefer. Um, one of the things that struck me when I was in Israel, and it was actually said by an individual who's I guess the mayor of the Gaza envelope area. She was supposed to be running for it before October 7th happened, and then elections didn't happen because of what happened, and now she recently stepped into the position. And she said something which I thought was extremely powerful as part of this, and I'll talk about this ambulance dedication we were at. She said that, there's a choice that they make every single day. And the choice that they make every single day is to live. Is to get up and to live. And she doesn't just mean to breathe, but it means to actively make a choice to choose life. Um, and I reflected a lot on that, and I saw a lot of ways that got manifest. And I'd like to share a few, and then maybe sort of take a take-home message for each of us, because we, everyone, I'm assuming on this call, no one's. My brother didn't stop in, so none of us are in the front lines in Israel in any sense. We're sort of outside over here, feeling that, but their sort of approach and bravery and perspective, A, can inspire us, and then B, the question is, what do we do with that as well? So it was interesting. One of the things that we had the privilege of being a part of, and if you're interested, I'm happy to send out the link to a post I put, is there was an ambulance dedication that we did that was in memory of Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir, as well as the Silbermans. The Silbermans, unfortunately, a lot of people don't remember who they are or were, but they were actually Shiri's parents. They were also murdered in Nero's on that day. And the ambulance that we ended up dedicating through a whole series of events, which were actually quite miraculous. And I literally just got an email before Shabbos from the family down there, just reminiscing about the comfort that provided them. But this ambulance was in a gesture that we were able to do to provide a little comfort for them down there because of something that went haywire over here with a plane that we were supposed to take to the Washington mission. But what was interesting was the family, when I was speaking to them more and more, both when I met them first last February, as well as when we were, schmoozing just a couple of days ago, there were two things that stuck out at me. Number one is there was the discussion that they had about whether they stay. They own a farm, Dana. So just to give the context a little bit, I apologize. I don't want to spend the whole time doing this, but when I went down on a led a mission for Federation, we did some volunteering, and one of the places we went was to this kibbutz Yesha, which is near Oz, and it's owned by a person by the name of Elad Sidon. Elad Sidon happens to be married to Dana, and Dana is the sister of Shiri Bibas. We were helping to pick clementines, and then when I got to speak to him, he didn't even say his story, but as we got to know each other, he described what was going on. And he said that he didn't know whether or not they would end up staying at the farm. This farm was founded in part by his grandfather. And he said, listen, if my wife wants to pick up and move because this whole territory is too painful to be in, he said, I don't know what I'll do, but I'll pick up and I'll make that move. And when I was speaking to him and his wife, we were discussing a little bit more, and they said, listen, they made a choice. They said that, like, even though this is not easy to be here, but like we're this is our land, this is our history, this is our place. And the choice we're going to make is not to run away and sort of be in a place that's either safer or starts over again or just removes the memory of the pain. But our choice is going to be to stay here and to rebuild. And at the moment that they said that, I just thought about the power of what it means to sort of run from, anything that's fear or pain versus to acknowledge that you accept that. And there's no way of really getting rid of that. But despite that, that idea of choosing life. And then what was phenomenal is after the whole ceremony, and I will send out in a link to everybody the post that I put just to show you the whole story. But to culminate at the end, after we donated the ambulance in their memory, Dana and Elad went up to Magen David Adom, who are the ones that were helping supply the ambulance. And they said, now that there's going to be an ambulance that's going around the area, saving lives and bringing life into this world, we'd like to take the paramedics course so that we can also be part of the individuals who drive the ambulance in their memory to go ahead and bring more life into this world. And I just thought the extreme response from going from a place of such pain to saying we're going to continue living our lives and actually, no, we're going to do something that's going to even further bring you more life was that idea, like I referenced before, this idea that they don't just live, they make active choices, not choices, where am I going to go to this restaurant or that restaurant? Where are we going to go out tonight? Or what direction am I going to take? The choices that they make really on a fundamental daily level has something of an existential purpose and reason behind them. And that was one choice that stuck out. Another one, it was really interesting. One of the things that we did with our families, we went to Har Herzl one morning. And rather than just go there, I reached out to an old friend of mine who was actually a shaliach at Chat when I had first started many years ago, and we've kept in touch. And I asked my friend, Hillel Van Leeuwen is his name, if he would mind meeting us over there, because I know he has a lot of connection to a lot of different aspects of what had been going on. He also works for World Mizrahi. He's very close to Rev Doron Perez, who many of you might have heard about what happened to his son and their family's response. Anyhow, we went through a bunch of different, kvarim. We went by a bunch of different graves, lone soldier graves, many different others. And we spent an hour, but we didn't get past just the area within October 7th and what transpired after that. And then we stood at one, and his name was Moshe Leiter. You might be familiar with the name Leiter because Yechiel Leiter is, I believe, the ambassador, U.S. Israeli ambassador. And he was actually just on CNN a little while ago with Jack Tapper or Tapper. And Jake was asking him about what was going on in Israel, and at some point, about the response that's all that mishigas that we hear all the time. And Yechiel said, "Listen, if it wasn't for the fact that we cared so much about ensuring that we try to minimize whatever we can when the other side is trying to maximize," he said, "I'll be honest with you, my son would be alive today." So Yechiel's son, Moshe, was a 39-year-old Milunimnik a reservist who got called up and unfortunately was killed in battle. He has a family. And he said that the only reason why he's not around is because he went by foot trying to ensure that they don't at his own risk. And at the end of the interview, what was interesting is it was closed by him asking, what was the name of your son? And may your son's memory be a blessing. A side facet of that story, with relation to what we called about choices, is Yechiel Leiter, his mechutin. So the son, the mechutin, meaning his son, is married to Hillel Van Leeuwen's daughter. So they're mishpacha that way. The night that they found out that Moshe was killed in battle was a crazy night, Hillel said. Hillel had two sons down in Gaza at the time that were fighting, and it was early on in the war. And it's Shabbos night, and Shabbos night at 11:30 at night, there's a knock at the door. Now, you and I both know what knocks at the door mean. And if you're getting one at 11:30 at night, when you're not expecting anybody to come by your home, and you have two children that are in Gaza, there's only one thing that's going through every part of your body. Hillel goes to the door, opens the door, sees that there's three soldiers standing there. They send three people, I believe. And obviously, at that moment, he dies. But he has a tchias amesim, sort of, a resurrection, when they say, "We're not here for you, Mr. Van Leeuwen. What are you doing here? Your son-in-law is staying with you. We're here for him." And the way it works, many of us might be familiar with the stories, unfortunately, is as soon as they know, they verify, then they go to the parents first, then siblings, and they have a time. They've got to go very quickly because they don't want the word to get out to any family before it leaks through other means and friends and whatever it might be. So 11:30 at night, they're sitting in the basement. They come, he's with his son-in-law and his daughter. And obviously they're beyond description of destroyed in tears for hours and hours. But he said the next morning was an interesting morning. He says the reason why my son-in-law and daughter were over is because my other, I think it was his other daughter, had a baby and there was going to be a baby naming that Shabbos morning in the shul, which is why they were there. So he said you can just imagine our home at this moment, right? Everybody's here for a simcha, and now we find out that our son-in-law just lost his brother. And his son-in-law and daughter said, listen, they called the family together and said, listen, let's not tell anybody. Tomorrow's a day of celebration for the other sibling, for the community. People are going to want to say Mazel Tov and how great things are and welcome a new life into this world. Let's all agree right here that we're going to choose to say nothing about what just happened. And after Shabbos, we'll do what we have to do. It sounds like such a casual piece, but the choice at that moment to put one's own pain aside in order to, give space for somebody else's joy, knowing that there's no way you can get rid of one, and at the same time, the only thing you can do is to live. And it sounds so, sort of easy when we speak it, but to live it is so impossible. I think that's another expression of this idea that they choose every single day the concept of life. There was another, and again, we could go on forever, but we don't have forever. So we were blessed to be in Israel for two weddings, one for family, one for a member in our shul. There was another member of our shul who was there for another wedding, for the wedding of Keith Siegel's daughter, a released hostage, as I'm sure you're all familiar with the name. And what was described at the wedding, he said, was that his daughter chose to push off the wedding. She pushed off the wedding, said, I don't want to get married without my father. My father will be returned. This idea of living with both this pain and this loss and this sense of life and choice and how do we move on and stay optimistic is something that I think outside of Israel, we hear the stories, we can share the stories, we can kind of feel that story, but we don't understand what it's like. And I think we just have to appreciate the enormity of the heroes of every single person that faces Israel. Kitetse lemilchama, when you go to battle, I believe, doesn't just mean the battle of the front lines. Of course it means that. But it also means that every single day there's a battle, right? And you can choose between, like it says in the Parsha of weeks ago, between good and bad, life and death. And then it says, "Ubacharta b'chaim." The choice that we always have to make is to choose life, not to be defined by the pain or the struggle, but to utilize that to find a way to move past and to choose heroically this concept of life. And there are examples everywhere you turn of this in Israel. And then it comes to sort of us. Like, so what do we do? And I think if that's one message that we can take, right? Lots of discussions, and usually what rabbis do on this week's Parsha, when it says Ki Tetzei LaMilchama, is they quote the famous, I think it might be the Baal Shem Tov, or everybody probably says it. It says when you go out to war, there's two types of war. There's physical war, but then there's the internal struggle and battle war between right and wrong, good and bad. Do I up my Jewishness, or do I just say, you know what, I'm doing what I do, or do I, God forbid, even go regress in terms of where I might have been at one point? And while that might sound trite compared to what's happening on the front lines there, we do believe that the actions that we make and the choices we choose to choose more Jewish, to choose more goodness, to choose more chesed and tefillah and Torah, those choices in our battles, we believe, send like shock waves to Shemaim, to the satellites and heavens of God, and gets brought down over there as well. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to remember, that in whatever way we can strengthen ourselves here, that's all we can do. But that's not all we can do. That's what we must be doing on this side. The choices that they're making on the battlefield are ones that we never make. But the choices that they're making in their lives, in their homes, in how to express. I remember just, and we'll end, I could go on for too long. When we were going to the ambulance dedication from the underground Magen David Adom blood bank, our cab driver, who just seemed like a pasha, not cab driver, bus driver, seemed like a pasha, a simple bus driver, ends up speaking to me for like an hour about Emuna and how you don't understand. Everything is like a miracle over here, and despite everything that's going on, as long as we, Mishama Min Lo Mifached, we believe. They don't just sing these words, right, to the songs that we like singing at weddings or at rallies. They live those words. They understand the words and they live those words. That they have a deep-seated belief that their actions make a difference, and that if they do what they need to do, then God looks down upon them and will hopefully bring the miracles that they start to see already, but will ultimately be the ones that we completely need to see the finishing of the story. So we don't know what this year will bring. Our tradition teaches, which we deeply believe, that there's no script yet for what happens starting, Tishrei 1, Rosh Hashanah, and moving forward to the entire year. So this time period is a time period of tremendous reflection, of strengthening, of girding our loins for our own battles that are out there. And the hope is that the stronger that we are in the choices that we make, right, the more strength it will give them over there, and the more it will signal up above to God that this year needs to be the type of year that you and I are both davening for, hoping for, praying for, and we should merit to be able to see that. So let's Tetzei L'Milchama, go out to our own battles, always choose life. Choose more of the values and the Yiddishkeit that we have when we have an option. Don't sit there, like stop for a moment when you're facing that decision and say, which way am I going to choose? Because it's a choice. And please God, the end of this week's Parsha ends off with the Mechias Amalek, getting rid of, abject evil in this world. Maybe the battles that we take in the beginning of the Parsha that get rid of the abject evil that we face here and around the world. And please God, we should be blessed as we continue to learn and grow to see a Shana Tova, a sweet year, a good year, a year of peace, and ultimately a year to the end of the journey of our galus, of our exile, to the return to Israel. B'mher v'yameinu. Chevra, it's great to see everyone. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos, and hopefully by next week we'll all be back in Israel somehow.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thank
shalom, my
you.
friends.